Hi, it's Nicole McWork with June's lesson for Scrapbook Stamping, brought to you by 2peasinAbucket.com. This month's lesson is on coloring in stamped images on your scrapbook layouts. The first thing I'm going to do is going to go through my product that I'm using really quickly, and I'm using a lot of Echo Park. That's from the Dots and Stripes, the yellow is. Then the rest of the pattern paper I'm going to show here is all from the Summer Days, I believe, collection it is. And I'm not going to use all of these. I'm just going to use a few, but I pulled these out because I wasn't quite sure exactly what all I would want to actually incorporate. Then I did pull out all of these stickers, some jelly bean soup and then some others from Echo Park, and I ended up not using any of them. Then I have some smooth white cardstock for my stamping, some Doodlebug buttons, and then for my stamps this month, I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn, the new Blissful Botanicals, kind of a tongue twister. I'm going to be using the leaves on there. I'm going to color them in and cut them out and use them with the Doodlebug buttons. I'm going to use Cruising Through Life. I thought I was going to use the new Schoolhouse borders, or backdrops, I guess, and I ended up not using those and using a Hero Art stamp instead. Then I'm going to use the A Date with Allie stamp set from Technique Tuesday. It has that great 2011 that I think will be really cute colored in. You can see most of the stamps I'm picking are going to be stamps that can be colored in. And then I'm going to use the April Studio AE, it's in the details, because again, it has some nice words that are great to be colored in. And then I'm going to use just one other stamp set from Technique Tuesday to do a little additional stamping. The first thing I'm going to stamp is this border here, and I'm using a sheet of 8.5 by 11 smooth cardstock, and I'm just going to stamp this leaf border repeatedly. I didn't do a very good job there, so I'm going to flip my paper over and start again. Sorry that my head's in the way there. This is from the Lawn Fawn Blissful Botanicals set. And you can see that if you are fairly careful here, I'm going to ink that up again. You can line it right up and make it look like a continuous, long stamped border. So there is my border. I'm going to just fill in one more there at the other end. Then quickly kind of clean up my mess here. When you are coloring with Copics, you want to make sure you use an ink that works with Copics and won't bleed. So I'm using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. That's the one that I prefer for all my Copic coloring. And now I'm simply going in with my lightest Copic color in the greens that I'm using. This is YG01, which is just a yellow-green, and it's fairly light. And I'm just going to go in with it and color the light area with it first. So I'm going to just continuing this. I'll cut out part of this because you don't want to sit and just watch the coloring. Next, I'm going in with my next darkest color, the YG03, and then YG05, and I blended that out really good, and then I decided I wanted just a tad bit darker right there next to the stem, and that was YG17. Then I went ahead and finished that entire border, and you can see what that looks like there. Now originally I was going to do my photos different. That's what you could see there, and it just wasn't working for me at all. So that's how come the layout doesn't look exactly like that. I made a change midway through. I'm going to stamp these other leaves. Again, these are also from the Blissful Botanical set, and I'm going to use the same green colors to color in all of these. Again, you want to start with your lightest color, color the whole leaf, and then you can add your shading with your darker colors. Then you'll go back in with your lightest color and blend them together. The great thing about Copics is they won't, you can go over them as many times as you want, and it'll never tear a hole through your paper. And you can always go and add additional color and keep blending and blending and blending until you get it exactly the way you want it. Now I'm going to cut out this too because it did take a little bit of time, but I went and cut out each of those leaves. And then you can see I'm kind of fiddling with them there. But they look really pretty. I left a little bit of a white border around them when I cut them out. And I'm going to use those doodlebug buttons. So I'm just kind of moving a few things around just to see what I like here. So I'm ready to stamp my title. And I just punched a notebook edge there at the top. And I'm using my Stamp-A-Ma-Jig with this Hero Arts graphic background stamp. It just helped me be able to line it up. Because this is longer than the stamp is, I wanted to make sure I could line it up exactly. So I'm using the Stamp-A-Ma-Jig again. Gotta line up. I'm going to use that clear piece that I stamped. Line that up, use the T-square, ink up my stamp, and I'm using the Tumbled Glass Distress ink from Tim Holtz. I like this color blue. It kind of gives that nice grid graph paper look. And I was having a hard time getting the middle of that stamp to stamp for whatever reason. But I don't really mind the kind of distressed look, so it ended up being okay. Next, I'm going to ink up this cute bicycle. This is also from a new Lawn Fawn stamp set called Cruising Through Life. And I'm going to stamp him right over that graph kind of look, that graphic background. It doesn't matter that you can see that lines through the stamped image. I'm going to go ahead and color right over that. You could mask it off, stamp the images first and mask them off and then stamp the background over it if you didn't like that look, but that doesn't really bother me, so I just did it this way, kind of easy. I'm lining up some of my stamps now from Technique Tuesday. These are from It's in the Details and the A Date with Allie stamp set. So there you can see I just picked them all up at once, inked them up, and I'm going to stamp them all at once, just like that. So that's a benefit of laying them out the way you want them first with the clear stamps. You can just make one stamped impression. Then I just stamp that down there at the bottom just to see if I like that color of ink because it's going to be hidden. And I did like that, so I went ahead and stamped it there right underneath the rest of my design. That little phrase is from the other Technique Tuesday Allie Edwards stamp set that I'm using, the Favorite Memories. And then I did go back with the little flowers to put in that basket on the bicycle from the Cruising Through Life stamp set. Now I've chosen a lot of colors that I just pulled directly from the pattern paper that I'm using from Echo Park, and I just pulled the Copic colors that I thought were close to that. And I'm going to be using quite a few different colors. So these were kind of all in the pink family. Next, I did some orange, so I picked a couple colors there. And again, I'm speeding through this for the video purposes because otherwise you'd be sitting and watching me color for a while. It didn't take that terrible long. I shouldn't say that, but again, it's not the most fun thing to watch. So there's some yellow. And then I'm going in with the greens. These are the same greens that I used for my other accents on my page. And I'm making the bottom of the letters darker and the top a little bit lighter. Going with the lightest color first, then my mid color, and then a darker color. Some of them I only used 2 colors, some I used 3. It just depended on how I thought it looked once I blended it. Once you've added your darker color, you can go back with your lighter color and kind of blend it all together. Now I'm going to color my bike red, and you can see this looks really kind of coral-ish in color. I always like to start with this lighter color when I'm doing a red like this. Helps give you some highlights in some lighter areas. I'm going back with my mid color here. The first color I used was R22, now I'm using R24, and then I'll go in with some R29 last. Just pulling that color. I kind of skipped a little bit of that bike coloring. And I'm going back with the 2011 now, and I'm just coloring in the same as I did before. It's a really cute little way to do the date. Blending that together. And it is a smaller word, so I'm being a little bit more careful because of course I don't want to get outside the lines too badly. Don't look too close. I probably got out of the lines here and there. But that really brightens up the title and gives it a lot of color and life. And even though this is relatively flat, all of the stuff going on this layout really gives it some depth and dimension. Here you can see the red there on the bike once it was all colored. I'm adding some grays. These are the cool grays for the tires. And I want them to be almost black, but when you're coloring with Copics, you don't actually color with black to get black. You can use shades of gray to give it a much more realistic looking black color. So you can see I started with my lightest and I added 2 additional colors. I used C5, C7, and C8. And these are the cool gray colors. There's also warm grays and toner gray and neutral gray and things like that. And that's just a personal preference with what you want to use. I'm using a little C2 here and a little C5. With the grays, I picked the cool grays because I picked a lot of bright colors for the rest of my Copic coloring, and that's what the page has. So I really thought that the cool grays kind of went better with these particular colors. But it is completely a personal preference and what looks good to your eye. Color in a little bit more of the bike that I missed. I did add a little bit of that C2 to the spokes of the wheels as well, just for a little bit of just color, I guess, in that wheel area. Adding a little bit of tan and brown here to the bike basket, and I colored in those flowers too up there. You can see I'm not doing this really nice and neat or anything like that, but once you go back, going with my lightest color, and blend it together really nice, it looks really good. I'm going to crinkle up that notebook edge, and now I am going to kind of quickly just put my page together. Add my adhesive, trim that down a little bit, my 2 stamped borders there. I stamped that little a little phrase on a strip of pattern paper from that stripe paper from the Favorite Memories Technique Tuesday set. And then I die cut my title using the silhouette, layering a purple die cut over a gray one. I just like the way that gives it a shadowed look. And it kind of completes the title because I want to have my date there somewhere. And I did pick that up and move it. I just thought it was way too close to the colored design. And I adhered that with some spray adhesive. The spray adhesive, it doesn't really, I've got a lot of questions about that lately. It doesn't particularly matter what kind of spray adhesive you use. I've used Krylon, and then I use another brand that I think Hobby Lobby carries. And I always make sure that it is acid free. Then I just don't worry too much if it's, because then it's safe for my scrapbook pages and things like that. So I adhered my cut out and stamped and colored leaves, and I'm just going to sew some buttons there. I'm going to wrap a little bit of that divine twine in the yellow where those 2 stamped strips meet and tie a little bow there. Thought that would add a fun little bit of texture. Just adding a glue dot to secure that right there to the page and trim the ends, fix it a little bit. Add a couple little mini paper clips. And then I did stamp some numbers from the Date with Allie stamp set out of several colors of ink and punched them out with a teeny tiny circle punch and placed them over my photos, and those coordinate back to my journaling, so it's easy to see what photo is what. For more information on this layout, plus additional samples, please visit twopeasinAbucket.com on June 1st, 2011 under the Scrapbook Stamping class. Thanks for watching.